The boss is Snake's mother? Most believe that Ocelot is the son of the boss and the Sorrow, and while a good case could be presented for that, it's never revealed directly in the Metal Gear series, nor is it alluded to as heavily like Jack aka Naked Snake, being the true son. You may be thinking this is crazy, but I will show evidence that reveals this connection from the boss, also the deduction of Dr. Strangelove, plus information Eva reveals, and even shockingly the Sorrow himself. Most Metal Gear fans aren't familiar with all the Peace Walker tapes, or just take what's presented at face value regarding Ocelot and his potential connections with the boss. This leads to many false assumptions or plot inaccuracies that many miss even in various MGSV theories too, but that's for another day. Getting back on topic, I'm not saying Ocelot can't be related to the boss, but what I am saying is that there is more evidence for Naked Snake to be the boss and the Sorrow's true son.
I've been waiting, Snake, for a long time. Waiting for your birth, your growth, and the finality of today.
Boss.
I didn't raise you and shape you into the man you are today, just so we could face each other in battle. He was one of them. You see, I am the last remaining child of the philosophers. But after he revealed the truth, my father was killed by that same shapeless, formless organization. And my father isn't the only thing the philosophers have taken from me. In June of 1944, the Cobras and I took part in the landing at Normandy. We'd been given a top-secret mission to locate and destroy enemy V-2 rocket installations. I was pregnant at the time. The Sorrow was the father. I gave birth on the field of battle. A beautiful baby boy. But my child was snatched away from me by the philosophers. Look at this scar. This is proof that I was once a mother. I gave up my body and my child for my country. There is nothing left inside me now. Nothing at all. No hatred, not even regret. And yet sometimes at night, I can still feel the pain creeping up inside me, slithering through my body like a snake. I've never talked this much about myself before. Thanks. Thanks for listening to me. I feel content. Snake, commence the operation. I raised you. I loved you. I've given you weapons, taught you techniques, endowed you with knowledge. There is nothing more for me to give you. All that's left for you to take is my life, by your own hand. One must die, and one must live. No victory, no defeat. The survivor will carry on the fight. It is our destiny. The one who survives will inherit the title of boss. And the one who inherits the title of boss will face an existence of endless battle. I'll give you 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, MiGs will come and bomb the hell out of this place. If you can beat me in less than 10 minutes, you'll be able to escape in time. Let's make this the greatest 10 minutes of our lives, Jack.
Boss.
You're a soldier. Finish your mission. Prove your loyalty. Face me.
As you can see in this clip, the boss directly mentions how she waited for Snake's birth. It is also mentioned how she raised him. This goes much further beyond metaphor or symbolism, as we will later see, when we look at the Sorrow's connection, and even Strangelove's deduction. We will see the true reason the boss let Snake kill her is because it was a punishment from the philosophers. She felt trapped with no choice. She did it for the sake of their child, just like the Sorrow gave up his life on the mission so their kid would be safe. One must live, one must die, no victory, no defeat. The boss knew in order to complete her mission, but more importantly save her child, she'd have to give up her life as well. When we review the following pertinent audio tapes, I've trimmed it down for the sake of time, and to hone in on what's relevant to this theory, but listening to them in their entirety reveals a treasure trove of information.
Just as invisible ultraviolet radiation scorched my skin, heavy particle radiation from space would cause irreparable harm to human tissue. In a word, she was expendable. It was during the boss's pre-flight checkup that I noticed something strange on the X-ray of her skull. Part of the right hemisphere of her brain was damaged. It seemed inexplicable, given her keen intelligence and amazing physical prowess, but there it was, and I decided to report it. I hoped that perhaps my discovery of a physical defect would result in the flight being cancelled. But as I went to make my report, she stopped me. "Why?" I demanded. "How can you let yourself be their guinea pig?" Ignoring my protests, she took me up to the roof of the lab. The night sky was ablaze with stars. It was there that I learned how she had wounded her head. 1943, Los Alamos. She was serving with the Special Forces when she received new orders. A German spy had infiltrated the Manhattan Project, which aimed to build the world's first atomic bomb. She was to eliminate him. His name was John von Neumann, a mathematician with superhuman computational abilities and the designer of the explosive lens. The Manhattan Project was a top national priority, security accordingly tight. The guards couldn't be allowed to know what was going on. She'd have to slip past them and make the death look like an accident. It should have been an easy enough mission. But just before the operation, she received unexpected news. A new life was growing inside her. She was overcome with joy, and for one brief moment, it clouded her judgment. She accidentally got into a shootout with the guards, and without thinking, protected her belly. She was shot in the head. The bullet only grazed the surface of her brain, but the tissue around the wound was destroyed, leaving her in a coma. She wasn't given much chance of recovery, but 3 months later, she woke up. Within 6, she was able to move around as if nothing had happened. It was functional compensation. The other parts of her brain took over for the part that was lost. It made logical sense, but such a full recovery was nothing short of a miracle. Perhaps her superhuman willpower made it possible. Or perhaps my body knew it had to survive for the sake of my unborn child. She smiled as she said that. I understand how she must have felt. "Some have taken to calling me Ms. Left Lobe," she said, "because I'll do anything for the mission." She was tough, yes, but she had feelings too. I knew that better than anyone else. As it turned out, von Neumann wasn't the spy. The assassination order was a deliberate bit of misinformation planted by the Russians. She had been deceived. The Eastern and Western camps were united on one point: opposition to the Nazis. The Allies needed to develop that bomb before Hitler did. But in looking ahead, the Russians found the Manhattan Project's progress a little too quick for their liking. Mass production of a uranium bomb, like the one that was eventually dropped on Hiroshima, would be difficult from a material perspective. But a plutonium bomb, once perfected, could be mass-produced, and eventually even miniaturized. And Moscow did not like the idea of America having that kind of head start. Explosive lens technology was critical to the plutonium design, so the plan was to get rid of its pioneer, von Neumann. And when that plot came to light, the US and the Soviet Union parted ways for good. It was one of the rare cold nights in Florida. She put her arm gently around my shivering shoulders. As I listened to her voice, I was wrapped in her soothing scent. I felt as if I were dreaming. Even in failure, she seemed perfect. Oddly enough, the failed assassination attempt helped preserve America's edge. A true super genius, von Neumann went on to make his mark in numerous fields outside of the Manhattan Project. Economic game theory, stored program computing. Almost all computers today use stored programs, the so-called von Neumann architecture. His death would have set back computing 10 years, and I wouldn't be at NASA doing research. I wouldn't have been there in her arms that night. I thanked the fates for giving me that chance. But then she said something unexpected. I should have killed von Neumann when I had the chance. Why, I asked. Wasn't the order a Soviet plot? I looked up at her as she began to explain. Yes, von Neumann was innocent, and killing the innocent is a grave crime. But I can't help but wonder, had I succeeded, what would the world be like now? Even without von Neumann, the explosive lens would have eventually been developed, von Neumann architecture too. But she seemed to believe that if progress had been put off for a few years, then perhaps East and West would have had a chance to work hand in hand. I'd never considered such a possibility, but her tone was confident, assertive. It was as if she intended to make the two superpowers shake hands herself. The explosive lens was developed too early, spawning a Cold War and an endless nuclear arms race, she continued. That mission sprung from deceit, but maybe it was divine providence too. It was like she was speaking to her own child. Her large, warm hand was on my head. I failed the mission because I let the mother in me take over. I should have killed him, no matter how great the guilt. If I'd killed him, I might not have prevented Hiroshima, but maybe I could have saved everyone in Nagasaki. I looked up at her and saw her looking up too, up at the starry sky. Her face showed only deep remorse. It was as if she'd convinced herself that she alone was responsible for creating this twisted world. But that's no reason for you to sacrifice yourself for this. I knew I'd never dissuade her, and yet I still clung to hope. I know you're concerned, and I thank you, but I have to be loyal to the end. And then she smiled at me. Loyal to the end. Loyal to what? I asked. But she didn't answer. To researching artificial intelligence, so that no one will ever have to make her sacrifice again. No human being should be asked to take on a mission that dangerous. Next time, I'll be the light that shines on someone else. I still wonder why she opened up to me on that chilly night in Florida. That operation was top secret, even if it was all in the past. I like to think it was because she trusted me, but that's probably not the case. She wanted someone to listen, and I don't think that someone was me. Those faraway eyes, the tone of her voice, like she was talking to her own child. Those things made it clear that she was speaking to someone else. I found myself envying that someone. 4 years later, I learned of her death. A traitor's death, no less. She'd stolen an American nuke and defected to the Soviet Union, where she was killed by her former apprentice. Or so I was told. I refused to believe it. She'd never do such a thing. I could think of only two possibilities. Either she really was trying to bring East and West together, or she truly did want to be killed. She believed the world is not the way it's supposed to be, that it's been unbalanced by the tenuous peace offered of nuclear deterrence, and that she was to blame. Perhaps her death was an act of atonement. She was loyal to the end, to our world. And I lost the light of my life. I now find myself victim to an incredibly irrational emotion of my own. That someone, the one she wanted to confess her sin to, could it be the one who took her life? The very thought drives me utterly mad with jealousy. One day, I will discover the truth.
His history when taking office, the CIA was able to feed lies to his new administration. They masked their own failures, placing the blame squarely on the boss's shoulders. After all, she'd selected an unreliable sleeper. They claimed she'd failed to make use of one of the most effective means of controlling a sleeper agent's actions: holding their family hostage. The boss was well aware that would have worked. She told me so later, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. It seems clear it had to do with having her own child taken. She could never inflict the same pain on anyone else. The CIA used that against her. In his election campaign, Kennedy had vowed to close the missile gap with Moscow. If America lost the space race, that promise would be worthless. The fact that the president had no links to the philosophers only made things worse. He was completely unaware of the secret networks she'd used to complete her mission. In his eyes, she was no better than a traitor. The fate that awaited her was cruel beyond belief. The order came down from above. The boss would take the official blame for the sleeper's betrayal. More so, she'd serve as wasn't the end of it. The boss had worked through the anti-Moscow faction of the Soviet Union's philosophers to place the sleeper agent, and at some point, the Soviets found out about it. Yet the Americans remained oblivious to the end. Even the philosopher network the boss plugged into never tipped them off to the double cross. That could only mean one of two things. Either the pro-Moscow philosophers had intervened, or the anti-Moscow philosophers had been turned. Either way, it was a situation their American counterparts couldn't stand. To preserve the philosopher's good name, and to repay her debt, so to speak, the boss once again made her way into the Soviet Union. There, she found herself face to face with the Soviets' own agent. And who should she find awaiting her return to Russia? The one who'd turned her sleeper against her, who'd fed them lies all this time. It was her former comrade in arms, the father of her child, the man known as the Sorrow. He didn't know it was the boss who'd sent the sleeper. Or to be more precise, the Soviet philosophers never told him. Former lovers, forced to fight to the death. One would live and one would die, she told me. That was the revenge the Soviet philosophers had in store for me. If both of them survived, their child would suffer in their place. They were left with no other option. The boss shot him. He offered no resistance. When she returned from the Soviet Union, there was no place left for her to go. She'd sacrificed everything. Everything. For her country. And in return, They treated her like a dead woman. She was made a scapegoat for no good reason, only because power had changed hands in Washington. Any lesser being would have long since cracked. It was then that one of her old SAS comrades reached out to her, Major Zero, and so Fox was born. She undertook a mission that, well, you should know better than anybody. You were a part of it. 20 days after Shepard's flight, President Kennedy announced that America would put a man on the moon. Without the intelligence the boss obtained, America's space program would never have caught up. Armstrong and Aldrin might never have walked on the moon, but the Americans' gain had cost the boss her health, her honor, and the man she loved. The word tragedy doesn't even begin to describe what she endured. The Soviets continued their manned space flights, and in 1963, Valentina Tereshkova became the so-called first woman in space. It's said they took their cue from NASA's long-buried Mercury Lady project. And so that, Snake, is the mission that kept her away from you for so long. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not use me as her agent? She knew I'd never even think of betraying her. I think it's because she didn't want to drag you into it. She probably knew what was going to happen. To complete the mission, she'd have to turn to the philosophers, and once she did that, whatever came of it, there'd be a price to pay. No one understood that better than her. So please, Snake, let it go. When she gave me the photo, she left me to decide whether or not to pass it along to you. I know she was torn about it, just as I was. She knew you'd probably blame yourself. Why did she hold on to it for so long? That, I can't say. To remind her of how much it hurt to be erased. She wasn't that kind of person. No. I think she meant it to be a message to you. She had her identity, her life, taken away. But she wanted you, of all people, to know the truth. Snake, you've probably already figured this out, but it's no accident that I'm only now sending you something I've withheld for so long. Little Bird tells me you recently made a big decision. You and the boss are different people. I understand that. And I'm not trying to second guess you. I simply wanted you to know what she saw, how she felt. That's all. Keep it with you, Snake. Keep it deep inside. Don't ever forget the path she took. Because you and I are the only people on this earth who know the truth.
Boss, I'm sorry, but I can't.
Strangelove deduces that the boss opened up to her, and was gazing into the sky like talking to her child. And Strangelove feels that message was for that child. Also she theorizes and is heartbroken that the one that message was for might even be for the one who killed the boss. We know in Metal Gear Solid, Peace Walker, Snake receives these tapes, therefore he is the one who gets to hear the message Strangelove thought was for the boss's child. Even when we listen to the perspective of Eva, it becomes clear of Snake's real connection to the boss, even if Snake never knew it himself, nor the other characters, except the philosophers of the USSR, and a select few. It's important to keep in mind that Naked Snake as of right now, survived all the way to 2014 time period in game of Metal Gear Solid 4, so even though the Patriots were formed and carried out their proxy wars, he was kept alive, almost as if staying true to an agreement made long ago. Of course things end up differently in the end, but explaining the build-up and fallout of MGS4 goes outside the scope of this video. Without further ado, let's view the clips that reveal the Sorrow may be Snake's father.
Boss, you have to shoot me.
I can't.
Shoot me. You want to finish your mission, don't you? Then you'll have to shoot me. The spirit of the warrior will always be with you. Don't be sad. We'll meet again someday.
Run!
Information regarding the legacy. You might say that this film itself is the fake!
Here we can see the Sorrow saying a key line to Snake, as he replays the past events. The line about the spirit of the warrior being with him is even repeated at the end of the game when we see the Sorrow and the boss standing together looking after the son. If the Sorrow wasn't the father, why would he help Snake in the interrogation room with Volgin? He revealed to Snake the radio frequency to unlock the jail cell, and in the boss fight with Volgin he shows Snake how much time is left before the bombs go off. Remember, the other Cobra unit members try to eliminate Snake, but the Sorrow does not. And even more damning at the fight with the Shagohod and Volgin, it could even be alluded to that the rain which caused Volgin to get finished off was done by the Sorrow, hence we see him looking after his son right once the battle is ended. We know the Sorrow can cause rain, as we saw it happen on the bridge with the boss.
My friends, let us fight together again.
I have waited long for this day.
We will fight with you once more.
Welcome back, boss.
Now that all 5 of us are together, it's time we go to the depths of hell itself. It's raining blood. Is he crying?
Kuwabara, Kuwabara. Ah, what a joyful scene.
Colonel Volgin.
Welcome to my country. And to my unit.
We can see that during this bridge sequence. It could also be a foreshadowing to later in the game, since we see the Sorrow's rain impacts Colonel Volgin, hence we witness his electricity flare up from the rain, and he says, Kuwabara, Kuwabara, which is a Japanese saying to ward off lightning. As you have seen from these video clips and dialogue, it is possible that Jack aka Naked Snake is the child of the boss and the Sorrow. It's also a possibility he could be a genetic brother of Ocelot, perhaps they were the original twin snakes. But that's a theory for another day, haha. Even Symbolism of the boss scars from womb is a snake, not an Ocelot. Her special unit is the Cobra unit. And even the ending theme song of Metal Gear Solid 3 is Way to Fall, which when we listen and look at lyrics is clearly talking about a message from a parent to their child. Naked Snake is the main character of the game, and song pertains to the boss and Jack. Due to copyright we can't play the song, but here it is. Way to Fall by Star Sailor. Son, you've got a way to fall, they'll tell you where to go but they won't know. Son, you'd better take it all, they'll tell you what they know but they won't show. Oh, I've got something in my throat, I need to be alone while I suffer. Son, you've got a way to kill, they're picking on you still but they don't know. Son, you'd better wait to shine, they'll tell you what is yours but they'll take mine. Oh, I've got something in my throat, I need to be alone while I suffer. Oh, there's a hole inside my boat and I need stay afloat for the summer long. Oh, I've got something in my throat, I need to be alone while I suffer. Oh, there's a hole inside my boat and I need stay afloat for the summer. Son, you've got to wait to fall, they'll tell you where to go but they won't know. Even early on in MGS3 when speaking to the boss on radio, she knows Snake lost weight just from voice. Snake is shocked she does, and the boss says, she knows all about him, and Snake is angry that he doesn't know anything about her. Could the boss kept Snake in the dark about his true identity for his own safety? Was this a glimpse of Mother's intuition, when the boss could tell his weight only by voice?
Talk to me. Let me hear your voice.
It's been 5 years, 72 days, and 18 hours.
You've lost weight.
You can tell just by the sound of my voice.
Of course I can. I know all about you.
Really? Well, I don't know anything about you.
What's that supposed to mean?
It will be interesting to see if Konami explores this plot point in the future, regarding Naked Snake's true origins and earlier career, as it is mostly a mystery beyond his early Green Beret days and being an atomic test subject. Will we see a game that fully features the boss, like Hideo Kojima originally wanted Metal Gear Solid 5 to be, for we know MGS-V is not MGS5. Will Konami give us a Metal Gear Solid 6 before we get a true 5? If you want the answers to these questions or more theory videos regarding Metal Gear, then subscribe to Wetwork Network.